news host is left speechless as a far-left Democrat who is very much in the Democrat world, has done a lot of work for these types of campaigns, exposes the secret of Kamala Harris. Guys, this is going to be a fun one. I know you're going to like it. I personally enjoy it because it's really interesting to see an insider's perspective on this whole thing, especially when they're actually thinking critically to a degree and not just, frothing at the mouth, as is the usual leftist way, and just batting out nonsense about, oh, the orange man, he's so bad. So there is something to be gained from here, and I think you're going to like it. So we're going to get right into it. But first, everybody, do me a big favor here. Like our video and share it around so more people can see our great hard-hitting content. We really appreciate it, and thank you. As always, everybody, I'm your host, Darian. Let's get into the show.
It's Vice President Harris' stunning loss. The former Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, placing the blame on President Biden and his late exit from the race. Pelosi telling the New York Times, quote, had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. The anticipation was that if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary. Our next guest has recently been vocal about missteps made in the Harris campaign. It's DNC Women's Chair and Harris Surrogate, Lindy Li, joining us now. Lindy, we appreciate you being here. This is sort of an after analysis here of what happened with the campaign. But first, talk to me about what's going on. You see here Nancy Pelosi making the case to sort of blame Joe Biden, but it's a backhanded compliment because she's blaming Joe Biden for allowing Kamala Harris to be the nominee.
Right. Well, thank you so much for having me. And what's left unsaid is that she is not forcefully saying that Harris would have been the strongest candidate after a rigorous process. She's not saying definitively that it would have been her. She says it might have been her, but, maybe there was an alternative. Maybe it was Josh Shapiro or maybe Gretchen Whitmer, someone who can forcefully litigate the case against Donald Trump. And if you truly believe that Trump is an existential threat, and that's what Democrats have been saying for the past couple of years, then you should have had that process instead of just coronating somebody.
So it's important to know who Lindy Li is so we can get some important background on this so we know it's not just some random Yahoo talking about this stuff, all right? She's a very involved Democrat. She currently works in the DNC as one of the women's co-chairs for, I believe, the Mid-Atlantic region. She also was on Asian American outreach for the Biden campaign back in 2020 and was Princeton class president, Princeton University, right? So very elite, snobby school, I know, but she was class president there for 4 years. And while she was there, she actually launched an anti-climate change campaign, basically encouraging people to lower their carbon footprint. You know how that goes. Point being, she is a very far left individual. So if she is criticizing the Democrats, it probably indicates that they're doing something wrong, given her beliefs and her deep experience with the Democrat Party. I hope you guys enjoyed and appreciated that little analysis and backstory. If you did, please do me a favor. Go ahead and click the subscribe button down below. We really could use it, guys. We really appreciate it. That way we can keep getting you more of this content.
What is the relationship? What has been the relationship throughout the campaign, and what do you think the relationship is today between Biden world and Kamala Harris world?
Well, I have friends, in both worlds, and let me tell you, the relationship was terrible even before the campaign. There was backstabbing. They wanted to hand her the most, least favorable agenda, the legislative priorities. She was stuck with immigration, civil rights, none of that went
before she was even a candidate,
exactly.
You're saying, as vice president.
There was a lot of backstabbing we saw in the press. People were leaking stuff all the time. The White House leaking like a sieve when it came to Kamala Harris. And finally, in the final year, she was able to stabilize and stop the bleeding of her staff because there was a lot of turnover as well. And we saw the press reports about that. And things have finally started to calm down. And I actually think President Biden, the whole endorsing her 30 minutes after he dropped out, I think that was a big FU to the party. You don't want me, here's somebody that you may not like.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that they obviously had an open borders agenda with the Democrat Party. So Kamala being the border czar, it's probably the worst position she could have gotten because she's basically damned if she do, damned if she doesn't. If she does actually try to secure the border, the left is going to throw a fit. And if she doesn't secure the border, well, she looks like just an idiot who doesn't care about having national security or a nation state at all, for that matter. So sucks for Kamala, I guess. And that is so true about Joe Biden endorsing her as nephew. I have this theory, and I think it's getting more and more vindicated every single day. Biden hates Kamala, and I mean hates with a capital H, all right? Trump said so as much himself back when he was debating Kamala in the 24 presidential debate, the first one. And it's totally true. You remember back in 2020 when Kamala got vicious against Biden during the Democrat primary, said that he was kind of a racist, a segregationist, he was working segregationist, and it was deeply hurtful to her as somebody who was bused at different schools. The victim Kamala, oh, she grew up so oppressed growing up in Canada. Oh no. Anyways, point is, he doesn't like her. Biden even put on a mask MAGA hat a week after that debate with Trump, where Trump talked about how he hates her. All right, so I'm just saying. And then later, Biden calls a bunch of Trump supporters trash. What happens next? Trump uses that to be one of the most brilliant campaign moves ever, going and dressing up as a trash man and saying, yeah, they think we're trash for dressing up as trash. It drew so much attention to it. It made Biden look like a jerk. It made the Democrats look like a jerk. And I say Biden look like a jerk because even if he does hate Kamala, he still is considered the one to be promoting her campaign, given their relationship as president and vice president. All of those things, it really worked against Kamala. So yeah, I think it was a giant FU. And Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. had the last laugh. Also, did you see how chummy him and Trump were at that transition meeting? And Biden was saying, we're going to make it as smooth as possible. I don't know. I think Joe might be a little bit more happier than people realize. That's all I'm saying.
But deal with it,
Suggesting that he's sticking the party with Kamala
Kind of like
Harris.
sticking it to the man.
Yeah, but okay, help me understand your perspective on that, because you worked for Kamala Harris.
I didn't. I'm a donor.
You're a donor.
Technically, I'm not on anyone's payroll. I'm not beholden to anyone. That's why I'm here telling the truth. I'm not here to gaslight anybody. This is just the truth.
And what is the truth?
The truth is this is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. Actually, it was $1.018 billion, I think, right? There were 20 million or $18 million in debt.
Right.
It's incredible. And I raised millions of that. I have friends that I have to be accountable to and to explain what happened, because I told them it was a margin of error race. I was promised, Jen O'Malley Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled. And even on the night of election night, I looked somebody in the eye and I said, are we going to do this? Are we going to pull it off? She told me yes. And I asked somebody else, like, how are you feeling? He's like, we're going to win Iowa. And I was like, what?
Do you think, did they believe this going in? Was there a real sense of false confidence on the side of Kamala Harris? Or did they know they were in store for disaster?
I was wondering about that. I was like, I asked them, are you privy to internal numbers that I am not seeing? Because I study this so carefully, and I just wasn't seeing any basis for that level of confidence. And I also want to remind our viewers that, the Trump campaign was touting all of these incredible empirical data weeks before election night. What Harris is touting was the door knocking. She didn't say anything really about early voting. Now I know it's because there was nothing much to say.
It's totally true about Trump's campaign doing a great job with the early voting. I think you have to thank Turning Point Action for a lot of that. Thanks to the work of Charlie Kirk's organization and many other patriots working under him, they were really able to get people registered in ways and numbers that we haven't seen in a very long time. If you look at the numbers in Arizona, for example, or Nevada, it's incredible what they accomplished. Another shout out goes to Scott Presler in Pennsylvania. I think he did a great job getting people registered to vote and getting out the vote there. And look at that. They won Arizona and Pennsylvania, two very important, now sadly, swing states that Trump lost in 2020.
I asked you what the relationship was between Biden world and Kamala Harris world, and you told me it was bad. It was bad predating the campaign. Where does Obama world fit in this? There's I don't want to break the Democratic Party into these, three fiefdoms, because there's probably more. Nancy Pelosi is a huge power player, but Barack Obama, the Obama world, is a huge player. How do they fit in the tension or the happiness of Democrats?
That's a really good question. I want to point out that they waited 3 days. Michelle and Barack Obama waited 3 days to endorse Kamala Harris. It was a silence heard around the world. And prior to Biden's endorsement that no one really anticipated, they were vetting people like Mark Kelly. Kamala Harris wasn't at the top of the ticket. So Biden's endorsement of Harris caught a lot of people off guard, even the chieftains of the party. I really think it was a big FU to everyone. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. I think I'm getting a vivid picture.
I didn't finish the word.
Specifically when it comes to why, or the effect, and perhaps the plan on when Joe Biden endorsed Kamala Harris. Really interesting insight, Lindy. Thank you so much.
It's an insightful point about the silence of the Obamas. And that's something I actually noticed myself at the time. And I actually told a few people, hey, I think they're not going to pick Kamala to be the next nominee, because if they do, they're going to lose because she's so unlikable. And then a few days passes, and then it became apparent Kamala was going to get picked. And I said, okay, I take it back. Looks like they think they can win with Kamala. And actually, it is scary, and she is a threat. And I still believe she was a threat, by the way. They ran a terrible campaign and got smoked. Yeah, for sure. But I do believe Kamala was a threat, because after all, the media brainwashes and manipulates people to such an extreme degree. It is scary. I mean, let's not forget that apparently, at least, according to the numbers, I think something like 72 million people voted for Kamala Harris. This is a lady who was polling so badly she was getting 0% before the primary in her own state, California, and then was forced to drop out as a result of it in 2020. So needless to say, she was extremely unpopular. Nobody liked her, but apparently over 70 million people were trained like monkeys into liking her just overnight. So, you know, at the end of the day, the media is very powerful. Let's not forget how they warped so many people's minds starting in March 2020, for example. That was really quite a scary sight to see, and it made me learn that they can convince the American people of this, or at least rather a portion of the American people of this. They can convince them of just about anything. And for over 70 million, apparently, they did. With all that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. As always, please be sure to comment below. Let us know what you liked about the video, what kind of stuff you want to see in the future, and we'll see you again soon. God bless.